Hey everyone, and welcome to my new video on series on understanding CBET. In this video today, I'm going to walk you through on various aspects of assessment tool design on areas that you need to know. So welcome. So I want to give you a head start on our roadmap to reaching on understanding CBET. We started looking at our first principle, and that is aligning to the industry requirements. Number two, we unpacked principle number two on clear, measurable learning outcomes. You also unpacked principle number three, that is relevant active learning activity and resources. And you're continuing in the principle number four on assessment of learning outcomes, of which we'll be starting looking at principle number five, and that is learner-centered approach. And this is our roadmap, and we'll be referring to this roadmap until we reach the level where now we say, now we understand CBET. So today I want us to dive in to walk you through what we call assessment tool design. And this is part of continuation of a series on assessment. And we did talk about how important it is to develop and design assessment tools. So these assessment tools are used to measure learners' proficiency in a particular competency. When you're talking about proficiency, you're looking at the ability of a learner to perform an activity or a task at a higher or at a high level of competency. So basically, it's a measure of how well a learner can understand and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitude that are very necessary to complete a task. Bring me to a point when you're talking about assessment tool, what are the considerations that you need to look at? So when you talk about consideration, the type of assessment tool that is used will depend on specific competency that is being assessed, as well as what are the resources that are required and in which assessment context that this assessment is being conducted. So therefore, need to focus on those three items: which unit of competency is being assessed, what are the resources that we need to mobilize for that particular unit of competency, and where will this assessment be conducted, and that is what we call assessment context. So what are these assessment support materials? One is the time you're developing assessment tools, you need to have an occupational standard. And we did talk about occupational standard, and we will be looking at what are the specific areas of our interest when it comes to developing assessment tools. To supplement that, you also need a curriculum. And this specific, you need to develop assessment requirements, and we will be unpacking again this. You also need to develop assessment plan with your learners. So you need to plan your assessment early in advance. Performance criteria weighting, and that will help you support which performance criteria has weight over the other in terms of marks allocation. Also, we'll be talking about how now and again do we develop assessment tools. So we'll be looking at what are the guidelines from TVET, CDAC in terms of developing assessment tools. You also be looking at portfolio of evidence and how do we collect all the evidence that are needed to support a learner's competency. You also be looking at mentoring tool and how important it is to administer these tools. Also be factoring validation, and you now develop all the assessment tools. We'll also now be looking at that validation tool, and most importantly, assessment appeal. So let's unpack occupational standard as one of the support requirements or support material. And we did talk about what an occupation standard when you are addressing industrial alignment as our first principle. And we say that it is a document that describes the skills, knowledge, and behavior that a learner needs to be competent in a particular occupation. And we say that an occupational standard is a benchmark of performance that a worker needs to have to conduct a particular task. And therefore, what are these specific area of interest in the OS? And here we're saying number one is what we call qualifications and qualification codes. So basically, you may be asking, what are these qualifications? So qualification are accomplishment or skills that make a learner suitable for a particular job uh, or activity, or it could be an achievement that you award on the successful completion of a course. So it could be in engineering, it could be in medical, and many other occupations. And therefore, that's what we call a qualification. And each qualification is usually given unique codes. And these codes are used to identify specific qualifications or unit of competency. And basically, when you talk about qualifications, we have qualification of a particular occupation, and you also have qualification codes for unit of competency. So when I talk about qualification code for an occupation, probably you need to visit TVETA site or KNQA rather website, so that you're able now to get the qualification codes for all the registered units. So please uh, find the link below for the courses that have already been registered and that have qualification codes. And of course, the unit of competency, the code is already provided in the OS. And again, to mention that we are going to see how you're able now to derive all those codes for these units in our series of video. Another specific area on the OS is what we call the unit of competency. And again, we did talk about unit of competency during our OS, and we say that they are usually developed by the industry experts and are used to ensure that workers or learners have the skills and knowledge that they need to be successful in their job. And of course, each unit of competency has its own unique specific code. Another specific area of our interest in the OS are the elements. And we talked about the elements are a broad description of the outcomes of the unit of competency. But when you go to your curriculum, they are what are termed as learning outcomes. So they describe the key tasks or activities that must be performed to demonstrate competency on a particular unit of learning. We also talked about the very specific area of interest in the OS is performance criteria. And we say that these are specific statements of what a learner must be able to demonstrate competency in an element of a unit of competency. So we talked about each element having its own corresponding performance criteria. And we are going to use this now to develop our assessment tools. The other aspect is required skills and knowledge. So other than the unit of competency, what other skills is needed to supplement the unit of competency? So you have the required skills. It could be basic skills, it could be common skills we are talking about, or it could be knowledge. What are these knowledge that we need to look at? So it's a very important area for us when you'll be developing assessment tools. And the last bit is what we call evidence guide. So it provides a guide on a unit of competence. So it outlines what are the critical aspects of performance criteria. It also provides assessment context, the resources, and many other evidence guide that we need to abide with in that particular unit of competency. So basically, these are the specific areas that we are going to use when you're developing our OS. So bearing in mind that OS is a very important tool, supporting material for us to use when you're developing assessment tools. So in our next video, we'll be looking at assessment requirements, and we look at this document that guide assessment of candidates in specific areas. So thank you, and I want to appreciate all those who have subscribed. Let's continue to support the channel. Let's share the video, and also let's like the videos. So let's meet in our next video on series understanding CBET. Thank you.